When we see our planet from the perspective of space, certain things become undeniably clear. One of the things that I realized during my time in space is that we're not from Earth. It's obvious that we're living a lie.
178 days. That's how long Ronald J. Garan Jr., a NASA astronaut, spent orbiting Earth. Nearly 6 months floating in the void of space, gazing at our planet from above, experiencing what few ever will. But when he returned, he had a message. But not just any message. It was a revelation so profound, so unsettling, that it challenges everything we think we know. What if everything we've built, believed, and trusted is a lie?
You know, when we zoom out and see our planet from space, a lot of things become clear. Not only do we see where the pieces of the puzzle fit, but who has them, what value they add.
Join me as we unravel the mystery behind what Garan calls the orbital perspective, and why he believes humanity is living a big lie. But first, let me ask you this. If you could see the world as one interconnected system, its boundaries invisible, its fragility undeniable, would it change how you live? Apparently it does, and Ron Garan swears by it.
The overriding emotion comes from seeing the planet from space, seeing that perspective, seeing the only home you've ever known.
Ron Garan, a decorated fighter pilot, engineer, and veteran astronaut, took a journey to space that wasn't just about science or exploration. It became a journey into truth, a truth he couldn't unsee. From the International Space Station, Garan described Earth as a delicate oasis, shimmering against the backdrop of infinite darkness. Yet, as breathtaking as it was, something else haunted him, a question he couldn't shake. Why, with all our resources and technology, do we still struggle to solve basic human problems? Could the answer lie in a deception so pervasive, so entrenched, that it's woven into the very fabric of society? Garan is often troubled just by the thought of it.
Picture that will allow us to solve a lot of the problems that we face. And we're paying a really high price right now as a civilization.
Garan's epiphany began with the orbital perspective. Imagine looking at Earth from 250 miles above. No borders, no divisions, just one interconnected planet. This view is said to trigger what astronauts call the overview effect, a cognitive shift that reveals the unity of all life on Earth. But Garan took it further.
This is a really, really dark time. And part of the reason why we're not solving the problems is because we don't have the right perspective. We're not addressing things in the reality of the situation that they exist. And I think that's one of the reasons why we need to leave the cave. We need to get out of the darkness.
He didn't just see unity, he saw disparity. Why do millions go hungry when there's enough food to feed everyone? Why are wars fought over imaginary lines when those lines vanish from orbit? Why do we cling to systems that perpetuate inequality and environmental destruction? And then it hit him. Maybe these problems persist because they serve a purpose for someone.
To deal with issues such as global warming, deforestation, biodiversity loss as standalone issues, when in reality, they're just symptoms of the underlying root problem.
Garan's words were simple yet chilling, but what did he mean by that? To understand, we must decode the layers of his message. His revelation wasn't just an abstract thought, it's a stark warning with real-world implications, including the ominous specter of the Kessler syndrome. The Kessler syndrome, first proposed by NASA scientist Donald J. Kessler in 1978, is more than just a theoretical scenario. It's a real and growing concern. Picture this. The low Earth orbit, LEO, where most of our satellites operate, is becoming increasingly crowded. Thousands of satellites, rocket fragments, and other debris are orbiting at speeds of up to 28,000 kilometers per hour. At such velocities, even a small piece of debris, like a paint chip, can cause catastrophic damage to operational satellites or spacecraft. The crux of the Kessler syndrome is a feedback loop. A single collision creates fragments that increase the likelihood of further collisions. Over time, this could create an unstoppable chain reaction, filling key orbital paths with debris and rendering them unusable. The cascading effect would trap us in a technological bottleneck, cutting off access to critical systems that underpin modern life, such as GPS navigation, global communications, weather forecasting, and even financial transactions. The implications extend beyond mere inconvenience. Space technology is deeply interwoven with life on Earth. Imagine disruptions in weather monitoring that leave entire regions unprepared for natural disasters. Picture the breakdown of global supply chains reliant on satellite-based logistics. Consider the loss of scientific observation observation tools that help us monitor climate change, understand Earth's systems, and predict environmental shifts. The Kessler syndrome is not just a space problem, it's an Earth problem. And let's not forget how thin the atmosphere really is.
Paper-thin layer of atmosphere. Because from here, you look up at it's a great big sky. It looks like it goes on forever. But it doesn't go on forever. It's very, very thin.
Moreover, the prospect of Kessler syndrome poses a unique challenge to humanity's future in space. If key orbits become unusable, it could severely limit space exploration, scientific advancements, and even the dream of interplanetary travel. Future missions to Mars or beyond may never leave the ground, and humanity could find itself stranded on Earth, confined by a self-made barrier of orbital debris. Currently, there are over 27,000 pieces of debris being tracked by global agencies, but this represents only the largest objects. Hundreds of thousands of smaller, untracked fragments are equally dangerous. Recent incidents, such as anti-satellite missile tests and accidental satellite collisions, highlight the urgent need for action. Every piece of debris created increases the probability of triggering the Kessler cascade. To counter this looming crisis, scientists and engineers are exploring solutions. Technologies like robotic arms, nets, and even laser systems are being developed to remove debris from orbit. International treaties are also being proposed to regulate space activity and enforce stricter protocols for debris mitigation. But these efforts face significant challenges: the high cost of debris removal, the complexities of international cooperation, and the lack of enforcement mechanisms for existing agreements. Ultimately, the Kessler syndrome serves as a stark metaphor for humanity's broader struggles. Just as space debris accumulates due to negligence and short-sightedness, so too do Earth's problems. Climate change, inequality, and resource depletion escalate when we fail to take responsibility for our actions. The time to address these issues isn't tomorrow, it's now. The future of space, and the future of Earth, depends on it. And Garen stresses on the importance of seeing the true meaning of being earthly beings.
And the problem is that we don't see ourselves as planetary.
Think about it. We're taught to see ourselves as distinct individuals, bound by nationality, race, religion, or social class. These divisions define our identities, our loyalties, our conflicts. But from space, those divisions don't exist. From the orbital perspective, the Earth is a single entity, a living, breathing organism where boundaries are invisible. And Garen was completely moved by the experience.
The blackness of space, and you think, this really looks like an oasis. I mean, it looks like this glowing jewel that's been given to us, and this is our home.
Yet we impose constructs, illusions, and lies which artificially serve fragmented narratives. And this brings us to the next question. If the foundation of our worldview is a lie, what else is? Moreover, consider how this false narrative of separation exacerbates our inability to address global crises like climate change, resource depletion, or even the escalating risk of space debris. It's a striking parallel, isn't it? Just as our divisions threaten life on Earth, our careless expansion into space threatens the very systems we rely upon. If the constructs of separateness define our worldview, are we also turning a blind eye to the bigger cosmic lie, that we are stewards of not just Earth but the heavens above? Let me ask you another question. Who benefits from this illusion? Could it be the corporations that thrive on competition and consumerism? The governments that maintain control through division and fear? Or perhaps it's us? And Garen believes so too.
We think we know the whole picture, when in reality we see a very, very small representation. We don't see the actual picture that will allow us to solve a lot of the problems that we face. And we're paying a really high price right now as a civilization.
Consider this. Embracing the truth requires a shift in priorities, a shift that threatens those who profit from the status quo. Corporations rely on the constant churn of consumerism to maintain their bottom lines. Governments often wield division as a tool to consolidate power, creating a narrative of us versus them. And then there's us, the individuals caught in the middle. Perhaps we avoid the truth not out of malice, but out of fear. The fear of change, the fear of uncertainty, the fear of losing the systems that, flawed as they are, provide comfort and familiarity. But what if clinging to these systems means sacrificing something far greater? What if this reluctance to confront reality is what perpetuates our biggest challenges? Whether it's environmental degradation, inequality, or even the growing threat of the Kessler syndrome, the cost of inaction is mounting. We're not just ignoring the truth, We're actively avoiding it because acknowledging it demands accountability, something most people are refraining from.
Part of the reason why we're not solving the problems is because we don't have the right perspective. We're not addressing things in the reality of the situation that they exist. And I think that's one of the reasons why we need to leave the cave. We need to get out of the darkness.
Yet, accountability is the very foundation of progress. Imagine a world where governments collaborated instead of competed, where corporations prioritize sustainability over profit margins, and where individuals recognize their power to drive change. Such a world is not utopian, it's achievable, but it starts with us questioning not just the systems around us, but our role within them.
For the world, and what's good for the world, but it will be at their own expense, the expense of their own national interest.
So I ask you again, who benefits from the lie? And more importantly, are you willing to confront it? Garen's insights didn't stop at philosophical musings. He spoke of tangible solutions, technologies and strategies that could address global issues like poverty, climate change and conflict. But here's the twist. These solutions already exist. We have the tools to create a sustainable, equitable world. So why haven't we?
There's only so much oil we can mine and burn. It's tautological. We must have a sustainable energy transport and energy infrastructure in the long term. So we know that's the end point. We know that.
Could it be that these solutions require cooperation on a scale humanity has yet to achieve? From renewable energy technologies to sustainable agriculture and advanced communication systems, the tools are there, but their implementation requires collective will and sacrifice. It's not just about creating the technology, it's about dismantling the barriers, political, economic, and social, that prevent their widespread adoption. Take climate change, for example. Solutions like solar and wind energy have the potential to transform our energy systems. Yet, vested interests in fossil fuels, coupled with political inertia, stall progress. Similarly, advancements in water purification and distribution technology could solve the global water crisis, but systemic inequality and lack of infrastructure investment keep these technologies out of reach for those who need them most. And what about the growing concern of space debris? The Kessler syndrome is a stark reminder that even as we strive to innovate, we often neglect the consequences of our actions. Addressing this requires international collaboration and significant investment in debris removal technology and sustainable space practices. But like on Earth, the solutions face resistance from stakeholders unwilling to bear the cost.
A little nudge on the trajectory of our global society. And if we look at things from that perspective, we realize that we are all incredibly powerful.
Garen argues that this resistance is rooted in the same big lie, the illusion of separateness. We see problems as isolated and solutions as someone else's responsibility, but from the orbital perspective, it's clear. Our challenges are shared, and so are their solutions. Overcoming these barriers isn't just a technical challenge, it's a cultural and psychological one. It requires us to embrace a new way of thinking, one that prioritizes the collective good over individual gain. So again, we ask, why haven't we acted? Perhaps the answer lies not in a lack of solutions, but in our reluctance to confront the deeper truths about our systems, our priorities, and ourselves. Until we do, the tools for a better world will remain just out of reach, waiting for humanity to awaken to its shared destiny. Could it be that the big lie isn't just about what we're told, but about what we choose to ignore? In his book, The Orbital Perspective, Garen writes, "The real enemy is not each other, it's our own inability to work together. From space, it's clear, the challenges we face, climate change, resource depletion, inequality, are not isolated problems. They're interconnected, just like us. But solving them requires a paradigm shift, a collective awakening."
We're not going to have peace on Earth until we recognize the basic fact of the interrelated structure of all reality. Now, the interrelated structure of all reality, that's not a cliche, that's not a philosophy, that's the reality of the world that we live in. That's fact.
It's not just a deception, it's a distraction, keeping us from seeing the bigger picture, a picture which can be changed for the better.
I tend to think that the orbital perspective is a message of hope. It's a hope that things aren't as bad as things are bad, but they're not as bad as we think they are, and they're not as intractable as we think they are. It is within our power to fix the problems that are facing our planet. We do not have to accept that the way things are the way things have to be.
But there's another threat Garan and his fellow astronauts warn about, one that isn't just philosophical but profoundly physical. The irony is chilling, isn't it? The technology that connects us and powers our modern lives could also isolate us permanently. Here's the question: why hasn't more been done to address this looming crisis? The answer ties back to the big lie. Just as we ignore the interconnectedness of our problems on Earth, we've turned a blind eye to the consequences of our actions in space. The Kessler syndrome isn't just a cautionary tale, it's a metaphor for our short-sightedness. The good news? Solutions exist. Engineers are developing technologies to remove debris, and global treaties could enforce stricter guidelines for space operations. But just like solving Earth's problems, addressing the Kessler syndrome requires cooperation, accountability, and a willingness to prioritize long-term survival over short-term gain. Ron Garan's revelation about the big lie and the interconnectedness of Earth isn't the only idea that challenges how we see ourselves and our place in the cosmos. Space has always been a catalyst for controversial and provocative theories, ideas that push the boundaries of our understanding and force us to confront unsettling truths about our existence. The simulation hypothesis: are we living in a cosmic experiment? Some scientists and philosophers propose that the universe we see might not be the ultimate reality, but a simulation created by an advanced civilization. Think about it. With the rapid progression of technology, future societies could potentially develop simulations so sophisticated that the beings within them would have no idea they were part of a constructed world. Could it be that the orbital perspective astronauts experience, the breathtaking view of Earth's unity, is part of this design, meant to evoke awe but obscure an even greater truth? The simulation hypothesis aligns eerily with the big lie, suggesting that the very fabric of our perceived reality may be an illusion. While no definitive evidence supports this theory, it raises profound questions. If our reality is simulated, what does that mean for humanity's search for meaning and progress? And most importantly, who's running the simulation and why? Now, this brings us to another important phenomenon, the Fermi paradox, the great silence. The Fermi paradox challenges us with a haunting contradiction. If the universe is so vast and filled with countless planets capable of hosting life, why haven't we encountered extraterrestrial civilizations? One possible answer is deeply unsettling. Intelligent civilizations may self-destruct before reaching the capability to communicate across the stars. Does humanity face the same fate? As we grapple with existential threats like climate change, nuclear conflict, and the growing hazard of Kessler syndrome, the question isn't abstract, it's urgent. Alternatively, could advanced alien civilizations already be aware of us, choosing to observe from afar, or even avoid us entirely? The Fermi paradox reminds us that our actions don't occur in isolation. They could determine whether humanity thrives or becomes another cosmic silence. And let me ask one final question. If the view from above can show us how interconnected we truly are, why does it take leaving Earth to realize this truth? Is it because we've been taught to focus only on what's in front of us, ignoring the larger picture? Or is it because acknowledging our unity would mean dismantling the very systems we depend on?
And why we have so much stagnation in our political systems and our ability to solve the problems that we face is we are so closed in, we've boxed ourselves in. Our universe ends over the next hill. Our universe ends at the end of our political system, our political party. And I think that really is a very, very self-limiting way to look at the world.
The truth, as Garan sees it, is both beautiful and terrifying. Beautiful because it reveals our potential to create a better world. Terrifying because it demands we confront uncomfortable truths about our systems, our leaders, and ourselves. Are we ready to face those truths, or will we continue to live the lie? 178 days in space changed Ron Garan's life forever. His message is clear. We can't afford to wait for another astronaut to remind us of what's at stake. The time to act is now. So I leave you with this question. Will you be a part of the change, or will you remain a part of the lie? The truth is out there. It begins with us. Let me know in the comments down below. And don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more insightful content.